Hey everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and today, or at least back on Friday, I had seen episode 4 of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Man, this show just gets crazier and crazier. I'm definitely feeling this build-up of like, this is easily the best episode so far, and I'm hoping that the show has a strong finish, because there's so much that they could dive into. This easily could have been a 10-12 episode show. Well, we only got 2 more episodes, so obviously there's gonna be stuff that's left open for movies or future seasons or whatever they choose to do. But so much happened, and I'm gonna try to cover everything, but undoubtedly there's gonna be stuff that I miss and I forget to talk about here. But okay, let's just go into it. Full spoilers, obviously. Wow, episode 4. Okay, so first off, the Dharmalages, they showed up in the end of the last episode, and basically they tell Bucky, you've got 8 episodes with Zemo to figure out whatever it is you need to figure out, otherwise, and then we're gonna come for him. He's gonna be ours, because obviously he killed King T'Chaka and that whole Civil War thing, and out of just mutual respect, because, you know, he's the White Wolf and they had this whole history of them helping him out and undoing his brainwashing. Out of just that mutual respect that they have for Bucky, they're like, okay, you have 8 hours, and then that's it. You know, obviously they're not gonna like just let this guy go free for days and days, because he will eventually escape. Spoiler alert, he does escape anyways. Anyways, so they've got 8 hours to figure out what's going on. They try to go to the hospital where that old lady died in the last episode with the Flag Smashers, and they try to get information. And of course, Zemo is the only one who he manages to bribe some little kids with candy. It's a really creepy scene, but he manages to figure out where they're holding the funeral. So they go to the funeral, and of course, who do they run into but John Walker, Captain America, the guy who has slowly been cracking at the seams. He's like a dam that's ready to burst, and you can tell like he just needs a couple more things to push him over the edge. And we'll get to that. Anyway, so they go to the funeral, and Sam's like, look, let me talk to her, because she's got some good points of view, you know, and she's just going about it the wrong way. And we talked about this last episode. She blew up those people who were tied up. They were literally tied up. They were not going to chase her down. They didn't have guns that were shooting at them. They were completely tied up. They were escaping. They were on their way out, and then she blew them up for no reason, which, you know, for me, it's like, hey, I don't care how good your ideology is. I don't care how good your cause is. If you're killing people who are unarmed, they're not chasing you, they're not shooting at you, they literally can't do anything because you've tied them up, and you can literally walk out the door and get away, but instead you decide to kill them for like no reason. You're the bad guy now, you know what I mean? And it's like it's the exact Thanos type of thing, and we're gonna get into it. But basically, you know, Sam has this whole discussion about like, they explain it out of like for the last 5 years essentially, and I'm glad we finally got this explanation, because I was kind of like, it was all really vague. But basically, for the last 5 years, a lot of countries had let down their borders, more people had jobs, more people had resources, but now that everyone came back, the organization, what was it called, the GRC or something like that, that the new Captain America is working with, they are basically the ones that are trying to put everything back to normal, in quotes. But of course, when you put things back to normal, you're essentially making it so that everyone who had those opportunities and those resources and those jobs and all this stuff are now basically kicked back out. You know what I mean? So can you imagine if you were on the streets, and then for 5 years it's like, oh hey, now I got a job, now I have a future, a career for my family, and then you get kicked back out because the people who originally had those jobs came back, you know? And so like, you kind of understand it. You're like, well shit, that does suck, doesn't it? And so you very much see how the Flag Smashers and the new Captain America are on extremely opposite viewpoints of the entire world situation of what's happening here. And it's kind of fascinating. But like I said, in the same sense that Thanos, hey, maybe Thanos did have a point, but he still killed half the universe. You know, it's the same exact thing of like, I don't care how good your point is, the second you start killing innocent people, for no reason, you know, maybe not even innocent, maybe just even though they were soldiers or guards on the opposite side, they didn't have guns on them and they weren't chasing you, they were literally tied up and you killed them anyways, you're kind of the bad guy now. You know what I mean? So that's basically where we're at in this situation. So Sam goes in and tries to talk to her, and they actually have a really fascinating conversation, and he's basically like, he literally, here's what he says, and it was like great dialogue in this episode, by the way. He says, if you're killing people, you're not making the world better, you're just making it different. And I was like, oh, whoa, holy shit. You know, and it's kind of interesting because the Flag Smashers, even between themselves, have this moment earlier in a graveyard when they're trying to get the serum out of this grave that they've hidden it at. They're like, oh, you know, it was so simple back in World War II. There was good guys and bad guys, but now the heroes have to get their hands dirty and all that stuff. And you're like, that's where their head is at, which, you know, I know some people, maybe some people watching this show agree with the Flag Smashers. Maybe some of them think like, yeah, the heroes do have to get their hands dirty, but I think that's wrong. You know, it's the same, you know, and it's kind of funny we phrase it this way because, you know, as I said in an earlier review, the Marvel superheroes, they do kill people. Iron Man, Captain America, Sam, Bucky, like in these movies, working as the good guys, they still kill people, but there's always this level of reasoning where it's like, well, you know, they were bad guys who had guns and who were chasing them and who were about to kill innocent people. So, you know, we always have like that level of reasoning when the good guys kill people. Whereas it's kind of funny to think about it now, but like over there in DC world where it's like Batman kills people, I get all like, what? Batman killed people? No, you know, it's just interesting thinking about the differences of like over here in Marvel, it's kind of been accepted that the good guys are gonna kill the bad guys, but on DC, we think about it, it's like, no, Superman, Batman shouldn't be killing people. I don't know. It's just interesting to think about. Deeper conversation. Anyways, back to the episode. But yeah, Sam tries to talk her down, and look, John Walker, he's got something going on with him. He's like a pressure cooker, you know. It's the expectations of what he's supposed to be. It's this, and then at the same time, he's got like this sort of smug, like, you know, I'm Captain America. I'm supposed to be respected. I got the symbol, you know. Whereas almost nobody, like that guy who spit in his face in the last episode, no one respects him for that. So he tells Sam, you got 10 minutes, but he gave him probably like 5 minutes. And so, of course, when he bursts through the door, Sam and Carly's conversation gets interrupted, and she's like, oh, you tricked me, blah, and they have this big chase scene. And it gets pretty crazy. So Zemo separated. Zemo shot Carly, smashes a bunch of the serum, but misses one, and of course John Walker picks it up and he looks at it. And you see a lot of how would you call it, parallels, mirroring of characters, where you see in certain ways where characters who are not on the same side, they start acting exactly the same. For example, when Sam and Carly are having their conversation, she says the line, don't patronize me, blah blah blah, and then outside you see Bucky telling John Walker like, hey, it hasn't been 10 minutes yet, you gotta stay out here, and then he's like, don't patronize me. And so you see like these characters mimicking each other through dialogue, and then later when John Walker picks up the serum, he does like this head tilt thing, right? Which is the exact same thing that Zemo did earlier, and Sam commented on, like, oh, he's gonna do that stupid head tilt thing. So it's interesting, you see like this mimicry happening between characters that are not on the same side, but you can see how they're all reaching the same place. The Flag Smashers are killing innocent people, and we're about to see John Walker snap. We'll get to that, but you know, it's fascinating. They're doing such an amazing job of seeing like, oh, these people say that they're all about different things, and yet somehow they're kind of acting the same, aren't they? Anyways, so basically they all go back to their place. The Dora Milaje show up and they humiliate John Walker. He comes in all cocky like, look, it's me, John Walker, Captain America, how about we talk about this? And then of course they're like, shut the fuck up, John. And they beat his ass. Zemo is just sitting there drinking in the background while all this fighting is happening. Apparently they can just dislocate Bucky's arm at any moment, because it's a Wakandan arm, so it makes sense, like they made it, right? So of course it also makes sense from like a safety thing, because they show at the beginning where she's like trying to, they're like testing the programming. She says the words and then nothing happens to him, so it's like, okay, you're free. It makes sense that they would have it built in to like, oh, we can take the arm off at any moment just in case he does snap, so yeah, it makes perfect sense that they were able to do that. And basically throughout all this chaos where everyone's fighting, Zemo escapes. There's just an open sewer grate in his bathroom and he just leaves, and we don't see him for the rest of the episode. I imagine he'll be back by next episode, or at the very least the last episode. He's very hell-bent on destroying the super soldiers. Now, maybe he thinks he smashed all the serum, and maybe he thinks like at least that part of his mission is done. But he's definitely going to come back because he's going to want to see these flag smashers getting taken care of. Although there was an interesting thing where Sam was kind of like, look, you want to get rid of all super soldiers, but what about Bucky? You seem to be fine with him being around. And he brought up this whole thing earlier with like the idea of a super soldier is supremacy just in its own, just in the notion of it existing. The idea of one human being being superior to other human beings, like that is supremacy, which of course that has very real world a history to it with Germany and the Übermensch and all this much darker stuff of like how the idea of a Superman came into being. Very fascinating. Go look up all the history of Superman and the Übermensch, and how they kind of turn it into an American symbol against the Nazis with, that's why Cap was punching Hitler on his first cover comic. It's a whole thing. Very fascinating stuff. Anyways, so basically Zemo is gone. He escapes, and the flag smashers are going to try and separate people. And here's the other thing is Carly calls Sam's sister and threatens the kids just to get Sam to meet her on a rooftop, while John Walker tries to go find the flag smasher somewhere else, and they're gonna basically try to jump him there, because they're gonna try to kill Captain America, kill the symbol or whatever. But you see how like Carly and the flag smashers are getting more and more extreme, because it's like they kill those people who were just tied up, and now they're threatening children and stuff. And even though they're like, oh well, I would never harm your sister, Sam, it's like, I don't know if I believe you. I think if it came down to it, you would harm someone's sister, and then try to justify it by saying like, it's all for the cause though. It's like, I don't know. She's definitely turning more into a Thanos. I think she's taken steps closer to that. Anyways, basically they find out that like, oh, they're trying to separate us from Captain America. They're trying to kill him, and they go, oh, by the way, before I get into like this final bit here, they had asked Shannon Carter to track John Walker and track some other people using her satellites. And whenever they show Sharon, she's like in this high-tech building. She's got all these guards around her and all of this like barricades, and she's like in this really nice looking place. I am very, very convinced that she's going to end up being the power broker. Now, I know some people say like she can't be the power broker because, oh, she was blipped. They showed it in Endgame. Here's what I'm going to say about that. Two things. One, obviously, it's probable that they didn't know what they were going to try and do with Sharon Carter when they made Endgame, so they put her face on the screen of people who had been blipped without fully knowing what the plan was, and now they're kind of backtracking that. Two, it's very easily explainable because you can say, oh, well, she's working in the underground criminal society. How easy would it be for any criminal to go underground and to let the world think that they were blipped, right? So it's very, very possible, and I think it is, that she is the power broker. I think it's true. Like this, the little hints that we're getting now, and she's like, oh, the power broker sure got mad when that scientist was killed. It's like, it's her. She's talking about herself. Come on. It seems obvious to me. Some people are still denying it. I think I'm right. I think it's gonna happen. Anyways, So they track John Walker down, and he's in the middle of fighting all these guys, and he has now taken the super soldier serum, and he's fighting everyone. He's holding his own for a little while, and then he's about to get stabbed by Carly when Lamar shows back up after having been tied up. He tackles Carly, and Carly punches him right into a pillar, and you can see his body like ragdolls against it for a second, and you hear like the bone crunching sound effects, and you can tell that that was a death punch. He's gone, and everyone scatters from the room, and John Walker, he's like, Lamar, you know, and you see those cracks just finally burst open, and he is gone. He jumps out the window, does a superhero landing, and we basically get a moment from the boys, you know, his final Homelander moment, where he finds one of them and he's like, where is she, almost like Batman style, and he just like he throws the shield against him, knocks him against this fountain where there's a crowd of people pulling out their phones watching this happen. You know, this episode is called The World Is Watching, so here's the moment, and he slams his shield down. It's hard to tell if it's against his neck or if it's his chest, but he slams his shield down several times. He's all super soldiered up, so there's blood. You see the guy's hand fall down and he's bleeding, and then everyone is just shocked, and Sam and Bucky are there watching like, what the fuck? And then Carly's there like, oh shit. And then they show this shot of the shield like half covered in blood, and it's like a lot of blood, so it's hard to tell if he was decapitated or what just happened, but John Walker has lost his shit. Like it's over for him. And look, we kind of it's we've seen the cracks being built in John Walker. We knew that this was like the path he was headed down. At the same time, you can't help but feel a little bad for him, because although at times he was very arrogant and cocky, there were other times where it's like the pressure's getting to this guy and it's not really his fault. You know, he's definitely overly aggressive at times and kind of making some of the wrong choices, but you see earlier they have this conversation between him and Lamar about like how, you know, those badges of honor that I got were just, you know, it's just reminders of the worst day of my life. Some of the things I had to do in Afghanistan, and, you know, just really, really heavy stuff. And you can't help but feel bad for him a little bit, but also like, you know, it's kind of everyone's fault. You know, is it the Flag Smasher's fault? Is it his fault? Is it the government's fault? It's just kind of everybody's fault, really. And then there you go. He's just, he's cracked, you know. Now, I don't know how they're gonna spin this in the next episode. I imagine that the government will kind of do a PR kind of spin, saying like, oh well, that guy was a terrorist, he was a bad guy, you know. And they'll probably do this thing where it's like, oh, John Walker needs to go on some leave, some military leave, go on vacation or something, when really they're gonna probably privately strip him of the shield, and Sam is either gonna steal it or be given it. I think he's gonna steal it probably, because we've seen promos of Sam with the shield and he's practicing and everything, and that hasn't happened in the show yet, so obviously that's gonna be coming up, right? So I imagine that Sam's more likely just to take the shield, or maybe John Walker gives him the shield. Maybe John Walker's even like, I don't deserve this. Who knows? I don't know which direction they're gonna take this yet, but I think it's fair to say that his time as Captain America, John Walker's, is over. You know, there's gonna be some kind of PR spin, but Sam's gonna end up with this shield next, and he's definitely gonna, I think this is gonna be like the motivation for Sam to be like, you know, what this shield represented for people. He didn't want to take on and try to continue Steve's legacy, but now that legacy's essentially been tainted, literally with blood. It's you know what I mean? And again, it's not that the Avengers and Marvel characters haven't killed people in the past, but it is this kind of like, you know, this guy was unarmed, he was literally running away, and he was just killed in a very public, brutal manner. For what? For not answering questions? You know what I mean? It's like Steve would have just arrested this guy, put him in handcuffs, but like, you know what I mean? He wouldn't have murdered that dude for really no reason. So wow, just wow, what an ending. I can't wait to see what happens next, because I mean, we all kind of knew this was going to happen, but geez, man, that was brutal and horrifying and kind of sad, and just on every level. It was like, oh my god. I will say this. This morning I saw a certain somebody on Twitter going like, finally we have a Captain America willing to do what needs to be done, or something like that, and everyone was like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? What? So that was interesting. I imagine that there's going to be a parallel to that in the show also. There's probably going to be a crowd of the public that's like, yeah, Captain America needed to be more brutal or something. It's like, okay, definitely missing the point of the scene here. But anyways, wow, that was brutal and crazy, and I feel bad for Lamar. I feel bad for John Walker. But you know, this person should not have been put in this position. And I guess at the end of the day, you blame, I guess, the government for not just keeping the shield in a museum like Sam thought it was gonna be. But here we are. Jesus. Ugh. Anyways, let me know what you guys think. Let me know what your thoughts were. And yeah. Oof. All right, I'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye.